Hello and welcome back. I'll be attempting to make some glass spinning tops today, here on the Jasa channel. And so I'll begin by lighting the propane first, and then introduce the oxygen into it. And then I'll heat up a small band in the middle of this 13mm rod and push together. This will begin to create a flat disc, normally called a Maria. This will be the main section of the spinning top. And now at first I thought this might be the best technique for this project. But then I decided to spend a few extra days practicing it and trying different techniques. This one helped me create a longer pointed tip, but making sure it's very straight and balanced is going to be one of the most important parts. It's going to be very challenging doing this by hand. I'm also going to start small and make several of them. This is the very first one here. I'm going to melt and pull out a small handle for the top of the top. Looking back, I could have cut the rod to make the handle. I did that for some of my other tops, but we'll just have to see how this melted one does. And so that last technique does work really well for the shaping. The only problem is that you might be left with smaller rods that might not be long enough for two hands. And so for this one, I'll gather up a nice round sphere and begin to shape it on my graphite pad. Just try to keep your hand and the rod kind of frozen in the same spot and just rotate the rod around in circles. And now they do make special graphite molds for the spin top, very similar to the marble mold. But now that the shaping is done on this one, I'm going to punty up to the tip with a cold attachment. I was really trying to avoid doing that, as I'm going to have to rework that tip once I break that attachment. But it's really the only way I can get a punty on axis, that way I can pull out the handle, which I'm doing now. And now looking back, I could have left the handle attached instead of melting it off right here. This would have gave me a punty in order to break that attachment and fix the tip. And then just cut that punty off with my tile snips to create the handle. And so instead, I'll have to go ahead and do it with my tweezers. I haven't tested any of these tops yet. When you're doing research and development, it's usually good to make 2 or 3 and test to see what works best and what doesn't. But I like to keep that for the very end of the video process, just to keep me a little bit more excited, a little more surprised with what will happen. So the biggest difference with this one is I'm going to hold it up towards the ceiling and flatten it using gravity. And then I'm going to come back and focus just on the tip of it to pull that out into a point. And now I do like shaping it with gravity. I feel it's a bit more even, but it's hard to get a very pronounced shape. It ends up making more of a rounded top. And I thought this was probably one of the coolest parts of the video. I'll start to heat it up into a liquidy honey-like state, and the weight of the top will start to pull out a long handle. Then it quickly cools down and becomes a solid rod again. And so for over the course of the week, this would be the last of my clear tops. Having been able to practice it for a little while, I think this would be the best one yet. This is the one I would put my money on. I also practiced quite a few trying to incorporate some color. Using colored glass is definitely one of the funner parts getting into lampworking, but can also be a bit tricky and present some problems like cracking. And so that's why I recommend practicing with clear glass first and only using small applications of color as you get into it. And so I'm going to experiment here with some fade to black and apply a lot of little dots. I thought this was kind of interesting as I haven't done much dot work lately. I'm just going for very random, small little dots. And then I'll melt them all into the surface of the glass so it'll be completely smooth. And then I'll gather it up and start the shaping process. And so real quick, I want to go ahead and welcome any new subscribers to the channel. Feel free to grab a coffee or a complimentary kolache. I make one of the best poppy seed kolaches, inspired by my late grandmother. But I also want to thank those that signed up for the membership feature. That's the new join button that's next to the subscribe button. It's a good way to help support the channel and give back to a little bit of what I do here. There's a smaller tier if you only want to donate a couple dollars, but then a larger tier if you want to give a bit more support. Now, one thing I wanted to directly discuss about that was the director's cut, which was going to feature extra footage from the episodes. But they're turning out to be a little more time-consuming than I thought, and there's no way I can voice over the entire director's cut. And so I don't know if I should change that tier and try to offer something else, or keep working at the director's cut and see if I can figure out a working method. I'm open to your suggestions in the comments below, but for an added bonus, I'm going to go ahead and credit the members at the end of this video and see how that goes. But now this next top is going to be hollow using this scallop tubing. I'll open a hole now and then flame cut a 6-inch section off. And then I'll attach a blow tube to this smaller section. But now a more proper way would be to attach the blow tube first and then flame cut the section off. So I'm kind of doing it backwards. But that's kind of how the developmental phase goes. It's a little bit more chaotic. It's kind of one of those things where you can take multiple paths to get to the same destination. And it might just come down to how steady your hands are to keep everything in balance. Of course, a mechanical lathe might help balance it too. That's something that some lamp workers do move into, doing their projects on lathes. And I think that would be a great addition to my shop. It would increase the versatility of what I could do. So I went ahead and gave it a little puff just to shape it. And I'm going to go back and thicken up the tip some more to lower the center of mass. And again, I'm not sure how any of these are going to work. I'm hoping that I'll get at least one to spin correctly. I'm going for at least 10 seconds of spin before toppling over. Of course, according to the law of large numbers, if I just keep making more of them, eventually I'll get one of them to work. It's very similar to that idea that if you have a bunch of monkeys just typing away randomly on typewriters, eventually, given enough time, they would write Shakespeare. And although it's a pretty funny idea, there's often little problems with theories that you don't really consider. Just to get the monkeys to type randomly in itself might be the problem, as any trained animal is going to just repeat the same task for the same reward. So they may just end up hitting the same keys over and over again and not actually making anything new. But now for this new hollow top, I'm being careful to leave the very top of it open. If I close it up, the air inside will expand or contract during temperature changes, causing it to pressurize the vessel, which may or may not cause it to explode. And now for these next two, I'm going to try a frit technique. I'm going to fill a tube up with different colors of frit and melt it all together. Frit is basically crushed glass. It's kind of similar to sand. I'm using some copper red and then some reactive colors. They have a little bit of silver and gold, which will react to the oxygen in the flame. And so this top should have a base of red with a sparkle of blue and purple around the outside. I'm really not sure how it's going to look. Using frit can be a little bit experimental, especially reactive frits. But when it comes to science, sometimes experimental is the best way to go. You got to use the best advice and information from the great minds before you. But then you have to attempt to push the boundaries, kind of raise the bar yourself. Teamwork is definitely where the best progress comes. But individually is where the best ideas often arise. You sometimes have to challenge an idea or the status quo to figure out where that repeating problem might lie, sort of like the monkeys on the typewriter. And I'm having a small problem here keeping the frit inside of the tube. I'm having to angle the tube upward to gather it, and so I'm just going to go ahead and dump the rest of it out and finish up the top. I had to apply a lot of heat to get the frit completely melted through to the center. Frit can be pretty problematic if you don't have it completely melted into your work, which can be even harder with hollow tubing as you want to keep the inside hollow and not melt it completely solid like I did here. I let this one get a little too cold and got a pretty bad crack, so I'm reheating the entire top to melt it back together. I could try to fill the handle up with frit in order to close it up, but I think the hollow handle on the solid top looks pretty cool. And so if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, don't forget to hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You can also leave a comment for a suggestion on a future video, or just to say hi. I'm also interested in knowing what is your favorite glass item, or what would you be most interested in purchasing if I were to put it up on a website. I haven't done any online sales yet, but I definitely want to break that barrier. I think once I start testing it out and sending out a few packages, that'll help me figure out a working system to get some glass items out there. I already have the shipping boxes, and I'll probably recycle the bubble wrap that comes with the raw glass I order. And now for this last top, I'm heating up the handle area and stretching it out a bit thinner. This way my tile snips can fit around it and cut it easily. I'm also making sure to reheat the top itself so I don't get another crack like on the last one. And so with my tile snips a little wet, I'm going to come down and give it a little cut. And now the last step is to flame polish any sharp edges from the handle and then put it in the kiln. And here they are. They're looking pretty cool. The frit tops are my favorite. They have a nice swirl of different colors inside. And the clear ones don't look half bad. I'm pretty confident we'll get some results. Because it's time to run the test. Yeah, well, look at that. It's working a lot better than I expected. My first one was under the 10-second mark. This one seems to be doing a bit better. This is the marvered top. That goes sideways. This is my most recent top. I made it only yesterday, and it's doing the best. I think it really shows that practice really does pay off. Oh. Oh. Or not. And now, for the first time on the Matt Jasa channel, I present Top vs. Top. Blue Exotic takes the first match, but can he hold against Green Slyme? Oh no, Green Slyme takes the second match. And now can Green Slyme hold his own against clear number 2? If so, it means advancing to take on the reigning champion, clear number 3. Oh, and it looks like Green Slyme came through at the last moment. We're gonna have to check the slow motion replay to confirm these results. Right there, clear number 2 is knocked over. Green Slyme will be going on to face the champion. Clear number 3 holds the record spin here on Top vs. Top at 2 minutes. It's gonna be a tough fight for Green Slyme. Oh, and it looks like it's over. Clear number 3 pulls out a clear victory. Thanks for watching Top vs. Top and joining me here on the Matt Jasa channel.